It feel like Miami.
Miami, 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 Miami.
It feel like Miami.
Welcome to the Heat Beat Podcast. I'm your host, Giancarlo Navas, and with me today, chat's all excited. Y'all have been missing him, all the YouTube comments, and every time we do pregaming or anything, everybody's asking, "Where's Kenny? Where's Kenny?" Well, Kenny's back. Kenny's
Yeah, man. I had to take some time, man. It was between like my actual schedule, just the Heat conversations. There's very little conversations I still want to have. Like it was just a whole lot of, well, Tyler's a trade piece and Bam needs to be aggressive. Just playing the hits, not on a podcast, but just in general Heat conversation. I was pretty annoyed with that, and I needed some rest. I mean, I did almost 2 years straight of 2-a-days with Heat Beat pretty much, so I just needed some time off. But I'm back. I'm good, and I'm excited to be here.
Kenny had time off. Chat is happy. Got saucy takes in chat. Happy. Get our co-host back. Well, season's long, as chat says. We know, but hey, we are here to discuss Game 1, Heat Knicks. They took the lead in the series. They went into the Mecca. Kenny the Mecca!
Quote unquote, man.
They went in that dump. It's listen, I love New York City. That fucking place is gross. It's as gross as a fucking subway train it took from the Bronx to get there. It was awful. I go up. I sit down in my seat. I thankfully have Heat fans in my section. We have a small contingency. I went to the game. Ryan Cortez went to the game. We held it down. We laughed at Knicks fans. But here to talk about what happened. I think it was I think it's an interesting game and an interesting series for a lot of reasons. And now there's Brunson is questionable with an injury, and as well as Julius Randle, Jimmy Butler, as we know, has an ankle. But let's talk about Game 1. Let's talk about what we saw, how we felt about it. Kenny, I think the big, we all knew it was going to happen. It was going to be a lot of pack the paint against both teams. It was going to be, all right, I want to see your shooters hit shots before I adjust to you. And I thought both teams did that. And I thought only one team, and I want to give Spo credit for this, and he's done this all playoffs. The halftime and quarter-to-quarter adjustments have been fucking on point. And I think teams take a game to react to what they need to do. And for all the shit that Spo's gotten, for all the stuff of, bad season or little stubborn and all that, they've gone away from what they've done all year. They're like, Bam, we want you to switch 1 through 5. Bam says, yes, sir. And Bam does that better than anybody in the NBA. They come into the playoffs against the Bucks. Are like, Bam, we're going to need you to cover Giannis one-on-one. We're going to need you to fly across screens, go up, under. Anything we need you to do against this guy, you're going to play drop. You're going to contain. And he said yes. And they come into this Knicks series. And, Kenny, we had a question. Are they going to drop? Are they going to switch? How are they going to do? Bam Adebayo in a drop. They're like, hey, we're going to, they don't have a lot of small players other than Gabe Vincent on the floor right now with Tyler's injury. And I think Miami has taken advantage of that fact. They miss so much. We're going to get into Tyler later and the comment and the reporting that Zach Lowe did. But, they're not – they play a lot of wings now. They play like 4 wings and on guard. Or they play Gabe and Kyle, who play a little bit above their weight in terms of kind of guard defense. And they've just been great on that end after the odd season that they've had, Kenny. So let's start with the defense and let's start with Spo has changed. I think the drop has been a good idea. They've really crowded the paint for Brunson. They've made his life hard, and they've really just forced Obi Toppin and Josh Hart to be shooters.
Yeah, and that was one thing I saw in the first half and even when the Knicks were on there running up double digits, I still knew the Heat were going to win because of that. Like, you're not going to win a game on a diet of Obi Toppin shooting threes. He's going to start missing. He's not a three-point shooter.
Dog, that arena was fed up with him.
Yeah, I mean, like it's one of those things you just let play out and see what happens. But I knew that was going to be the case. As far as the defense goes, as far as the drop, that was a great idea because Jalen Brunson will kill you in the paint like he did at times in the second quarter with his floater. But I knew that adjustment would come as well, just kind of cutting off that middle. And so I trust the Heat shooters, and as crazy as that sounds after the season they had, I trust their shooters a lot more than I trust the Knicks' shooting. And it ended up paying off.
At least their shooters are proven.
Yeah, their shooters are proven 100%. And we're going to get to the offense, I'm sure. But the defense, I just want to give credit to Spo, like you said, going to the drop, understanding that the Knicks don't have a ton of shooting and they want to get into the paint. And even when Julius Randle comes back, he's still an average shooter at best. And so I do think they will stick with that.
Hey, man, I want to give you love from the chat. Bronx Joker's like, miss you, Big Dog Kenny. Welcome back. Just everybody just really happy to see you. You know, we love our community, and you guys mean a lot to us. And thank you guys for all the love. And then we have Schmeathan saying, G drinking out of a Mexican candle. It's like a water bottle with like a rubber padding. I bring it to yoga. Listen, Schmeathan, I was telling Kenny before, I haven't slept in like 24 hours. I fucking flew to New York on a whim. I was like, oh, they won the game. My homie's like, hey, I got tickets. You want to come? And I'm like, well, it's Thursday and I got to work. So he's like, come Saturday. So I flew the first flight out of Miami on Saturday. It means I had to wake up at 5 a.m. And I took the first flight to New York on Monday, today, which means I had to wake up at 4:30 a.m. because, you know, it takes a long time to get to the airport down there. And security was fucking crazy. Monday morning, all these New York businessmen are everywhere traveling. So I'm beat. I have no energy. So leave me alone. Wow, hot. Outback Threes, it says hot with no Kenny or Alf was rough. Brass was carrying heavy. Gee, thanks. I was the host for that stretch.
Damn, I'm glad I don't even know who was on.
God damn, what the fuck? I tried my best, god damn it. Jesus. Oh yeah. Outback Threes says exactly. That's why I'm hosting. Listen, I'm no Alf. So I am carried by my teammates. I'm under no delusion. So yeah, okay. So the defense that they did, I thought made a lot of sense. Yeah. And really, New York didn't react to it a lot. So one of the things that they did was they're like, okay, well, if you're crowding on pick and roll, Miami wasn't like doubling because New York was doubling Jimmy Butler. They would either have the guy, either Mitchell Robinson or Hartenstein, super high up on the level on Jimmy. Really, funny enough, not letting him get to the pull up, which I think is like the thing that teams let him get to so that he doesn't get to the basket. But New York had like 2 or 3 lines of defense. It was like Hart, who did a really good job of staying with him. The big man press high up, and then they're sending like Hilt behind that. So in reality, Jimmy's like, they're forcing him to be a passer, and they're not letting him get to the basket or be a pull-up threat, which I think is interesting because I think normally teams are like, okay, well, you're an okay mid-range shooter. You can take those, which is what Milwaukee did, and obviously they paid for that. So that was what the Knicks did on the defensive end. Miami, we'll talk about how Miami adjusted, but the way that the Knicks adjusted on offense against Miami's defense was they isolated Brunson. They go, okay, well, we'll either get an initial switch on like a guard screen and we'll get the guard we like better, or we're just going to ISO straight up. And that was working for a bit. They got Kyle. I mean, he was cooking Kyle one-on-one. Yeah. That's not a matchup that
much
he's
faster.
Win. Yeah, and just he's a difficult guy to defend in isolation because he has that herky-jerky motion. And I think that stop-go body control, man, like you just fly into him and he gets contact and you're done. So, like, that's the hard part.
And he's a really good finisher, and his floater is also deadly. And so if he gets a step on you, you're kind of in danger. And you kind of just have to hope he misses, which he ended up doing a bunch.
I spill water on myself.
It happens.
Like the professional that I am. Yeah, so that was kind of the adjustment for New York. And then Miami they're like, okay, well, how about this? We're going to let you do the isolation, but now we're going to make sure that Jimmy is pre-rotating at the nail. Just making fun of me. So he's pre-rotating at the nail. So Jimmy's kind of waiting there to help. And I think the important part of kind of what Miami started doing was whoever Bam's man, because now the big man's not screening. So initially it was Mitchell Robinson pick and roll, and then Bam's in the drop. So if they don't want to involve Bam in the play, Mitchell Robinson's standing in the corner. They don't have a stretch big.
Useless.
They don't. So now those guys, either Mitchell's in the corner, which is kind of useless because unlike Bam or Draymond Green, he's not a passer to that level. So it's not even like they can pivot to a handoff or whatever. So Bam is just like totally waiting for Brunson in the paint. Jimmy's coming in on the nail. So Bam cuts off the initial Brunson drive if he beats Vincent or Strus or Lowry. And then Bam kind of comes in and forces a kick out, not to the corner, because now the corner is being occupied by Mitchell Robinson. Now he's passing out to the wing, and that's just a way worse shot. So now it's Hart and it's Obi Toppin taking these wing threes. And that's kind of when Miami started to get back in the game, Kenny, because, you know, it was like a 10-point game almost the entire second quarter. Even when Miami got offense going, it was Brunson kind of ISO score, ISO pull up, ISO free throws, whatever. Miami in the third quarter, they implemented this change. They started getting leak outs off those misses or off those passes or turnovers, and they just never looked back. So, like, credit to Spo. What a great halftime adjustment. They absolutely knew what they wanted to do, and it completely took New York's big men out of the game.
Yeah, and you know what? I want to give credit to Spo again for that. And also, I know we're talking about defense right now, but I do want to acknowledge that, one, correct, they did shrink the floor because Mitchell Robinson's not a shooter. Obi Toppin's also not much of a shooter. And so Jalen Brunson, you stop that drive, you force him to kick out, he's not really kicking out to anyone reliable. And so obviously they missed those shots. And what Spo never does, and what he encouraged them to do in the third quarter, I believe, get out and run. Off misses, Kevin Love with those 3-4 however many outlet passes, that changed the momentum. That gave the Heat a nice little cushion. Kenny, and it also intimidated the Knicks.
Kenny, how crazy? Because, like, I think conventional wisdom is, like, crash the boards, don't leak out.
Yeah.
And they trusted Bam and Kevin to hold the fort. Jimmy's like their third or second best. He's like their third best rebounder, right? Behind Bam and Kevin. So to not have your third tallest and third best rebounder in the paint when you're playing the best offensive rebounding team, that's crazy. And it worked.
Yeah. And I heard Kevin Durant say this before. Like, it gets to a point after a while where missed shots are like turnovers. Like when you just can't make anything and you're not grabbing those boards, they're like turnovers. And so we saw the Heat execute on those on the exact same way. And again, now, not only does missing the shots mess with you mentally because you can't make anything, you understand that if I miss this shot, they might also score.
Exactly, yeah. So now you
and so
little extra second when you're gonna shoot.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that ended up breaking them in a sense mentally. They got back into it a little bit towards the end, but by then it was kind of over.
That crowd,
the crowd was gone.
Was dead, bro. They were like, and anytime they wanted to get into it, it was like bad shot, turnover, miss, and you just can't get into it, and they never did. Saucy takes the chat, says Knicks shot 6 for 31 on open and wide open threes in game one. That's so Miami gets a little bit lucky, and that's a little bit of luck. You know what I mean? Like some of those are bad shooters. So like it's a little bit of luck, and some of it's like you make your own luck.
Yeah, and I also do want to mention the crowd also because and I tweeted this yesterday. You can feed off the energy of the crowd until the crowd gets tired, and that's going to happen at some point in the game.
They were sick of Obi. I'm telling you. Yeah. I had people in my section being like just fucking screaming all sorts of mean obscenities at Obi Toppin, and Obi's one of them. Obi's a New Yorker.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, I think the Heat may have taken the Knicks' best punch this series in the first half of that game, because it's kind of like that meme where like the Knicks just see the Heat as this big. And I know you don't like the Knicks, but the Heat, like every time the Knicks play the Heat, I see a bunch of Knicks fans talking about Allen Houston and fuck Alonzo Moore. Like they still take that rivalry.
They still hate. They still fucking hate us.
And we don't really think about them at all very much. And so when they saw the Heat in their building, they were really excited. They were real loud, getting the team into it. But once the Heat fought back and punched them back in the mouth, the crowd was gone. And now it's like, okay, now you really got to play. Now you got to find that energy. And they weren't able to do that.
Absolutely. And so let's talk about what Miami did on offense to kind of take the air out of the arena as well. So, they're doubling Jimmy on pick and roll. They're swarming the ball. They're doing what Miami does. They're just showing a lot of bodies and a lot of help, and they're super helping off the corners. And Spo's like, all right, well, let's run a little bit out of our Milwaukee playbook that we did in Game 5. Let's get Jimmy off the ball. And they did it in a lot of ways. Some of it was kind of that little pin down that they ran for Bam to facilitate. It was mostly Kyle and Kevin feeding him off those little pin downs. He was cutting really well backdoor. They would kind of screen the screener with him, or he'd screen and then get screened off the slip. So like, and they did, Kenny, what they did a lot, and I tweeted a couple videos about this on my TL, where they'll run two actions. So like on one side of the court, they're running, like Caleb will run a pick and roll with Cody Zeller, And by doing that, you bring Mitchell Robinson to at least, kind of he's in a drop, but close to the level of the screen. Yeah. And if Jimmy's cutting backdoor off that, right? So then on the other side of the floor, Kyle, Jimmy, and Max or Hamish are running some sort of screen action thing. So that side of the floor is being occupied. They're running a pick and roll, and now the big is out of the paint because he's out defending the ball. And Jimmy kind of cuts back. Caleb delivers a good pass, and they get an easy basket. And it's just so much. Jimmy's screening and slipping while Caleb and Zeller run a decoy, right? So it's like Kyle's at the top of the key, and they do this thing where like Caleb comes from the corner, and he comes up to kind of receive the ball, but he's coming off a Zeller screen. So Mitchell comes up because they're expecting, okay, they're going to run what they just ran again, right? Because Jimmy's on the other side, and they're ready for it, right? Because Mitchell's already hedging in. But in reality, what they're doing is they're running a fake action when the real play is Kyle, Jimmy slip, and they're late because they were expecting the other thing. And that's just fucking genius, bro.
Yeah, so there's that. And also, not only just the easy buckets for Jimmy, but the Knicks were so scared of Jimmy, and he's pretty much their game plan, as we saw yesterday. It led to, all right, Jimmy catches, kick out, swing, wide open three for Kevin Love or Caleb or whoever it was. And credit to them for knocking those shots down. I know they didn't shoot well overall, but there were points in the game where they just hit big shots where they needed to off those actions. And so I want to also give them credit, especially Kevin Love has been incredible these playoffs.
It's actually crazy how Cleveland just let him walk.
Yeah.
It's like fucking insane. And and Kyle said it after the game, we brought a guy with a great attitude, which is funny because I don't think that's what Kevin Love was known for. Famously, fit in or fit out, right? And all that stuff. But bringing a vet, Kenny, we said all year, the vibes are rancid. And I think bringing a guy in, a veteran, listen, I say it all the time. I quote Kevin Arnovitz, grown-ass men win championships. They brought veterans who have, by the way, Kevin has the quickest fucking hands. That guy, he's not the best defender, but that motherfucker has quick hands, and don't put the ball down near him because he'll fucking swipe. He and Kyle don't.
You gotta attack Kyle like a running back,
dude.
he's stripping, he's getting a jump ball, whatever.
But these teams are young and they don't know. Yeah, I don't think any of those guys have played Kyle Lowry in the playoffs.
And you know what? And the thing they haven't. And the thing I really want to not overlook with Kevin Love, it sounds kind of cliche, but having another champion. Somebody who knows how to win.
Kenny.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. And we saw that in the Grizzlies series with the Lakers. It's just like that inexperience gets to you. And so now Kevin Love comes in, and he's another one who regular season he was okay at best for the most part. Then playoffs come. You've seen it with Kyle. You've seen it with Jimmy. Guys who have been there before, they know when to turn it on and how to turn it on. And Kevin Love's just done an amazing job of it. I will admit, I completely underestimated that when he signed with the. I thought it was a really good move.
But I think he's been better than any of us could have expected.
He's been way better than I expected.
It's crazy. And it's not even what we thought. The shooting helps. It's everything else. It's a second big man passer, which I think we did not talk enough about. The entry passes he gives to Jimmy off cuts, it's because now they can use Bam to screen for Jimmy going down. It works.
And you know what? The biggest thing with Kevin Love is just simply the IQ.
So they've become
the IQ.
I'm not gonna say they were a dumb basketball team because I don't like to call them. I don't like to call professionals dumb. Sometimes, but for the most part, no. They became by adding. They added a real veteran guy, and they play Kyle a lot more. And all of a sudden, Jimmy, Kyle, Bam. Kevin, that's a lot of experience and smarts that you're playing a lot of minutes. Coached by Eric Spoelstra, Cody Zeller, another professional veteran who's been in the league a long time, who, by the way, Kenny, I did not expect Cody Zeller to play minutes in the playoffs. They've gone three centers. That's crazy.
And and that's another Eric Spoelstra thing. He'll save it till the playoffs and just you don't know how to guard it.
And so I do want to say a few minutes of like, okay, well, we're gonna give you a change of pace. I think Zeller's I
A
think
little bit of
Zeller's
size.
he's just
I
a
think
very
that helps
savvy
you.
roller, and they're using him how they use Deadman. Like they're just like, you're just gonna fucking go as downhill as possible. You're gonna maximum roll, and you're gonna slip, and you're gonna give kind of change of pace rolls, and Jimmy likes that. Jimmy fucking loves backup centers.
Jimmy
bro.
loves those kind of bigs
Jimmy
for
loves
whatever
backup
reason.
centers, bro. Well, you know the Minnesota game. That's what Jimmy lives for.
Yeah. But you know what? I wanna go back to Kevin Love really quick and the IQ. I think it's kind of a hand in glove fit because, and this is obviously no disrespect to the Caleb Martins and the Gabe Vincents and those guys like that, but the Heat have guys you don't really want making too many decisions, not because they can't, but because they're still developing in that sense. And so you take some of that responsibility off. And I'll include Tyler in that too. Tyler's gotten a lot better with his decision making, but when he's back, you probably still just kind of want him in spurts to be like, you know what, just be who you are, just score. And so adding another decision maker to the team with Kevin Love just makes a huge difference also. And as far as Cody Zeller, I think I want to give him and Bam a lot of credit because my biggest fear going into the series, it wasn't guarding Jalen Brunson. They have answers for that. Julius Randle, aside from that one game, Bam usually has him bottled up. I was worried about Mitchell Robinson on the offensive glass. And Bam and his minutes did a great job of, I don't know how many rebounds he got, but he kept Mitchell Robinson off the glass for the most part. And Cody Zeller also did that. So I want to give them both credit for that as well, because that was huge.
Yeah, no, and that was really kind of the key battleground that we felt of the series. And it's like, if Miami overhelps off their kind of big men on Jalen Brunson, are they going to leave themselves susceptible to offensive rebounding? And because they've played in a drop, the answer is no. It's just something that really we didn't think would happen. I mean, we figured they were going to switch or they were going to kind of show Kevin Love really hard, which is what they did kind of in the regular season. And they just kept them in a drop. I do think New York – go ahead.
I was like, I do want to – because you mentioned switching. I do want to point out that's also something that helped the Heat out yesterday as far as going on that run. They were really, really, really trying to get Jalen Brunson a favorable switch. When Duncan was in, he was calling 3-4 screens just to get to Duncan, and the Heat just wouldn't give it to him. And now you've wasted most of the shot clock. It ends up a bad shot. And so that's also been a huge deal, too, just being in that drop instead of switching. That the Knicks just didn't know what to do for a very long time. And that led to a lot of bad shots also.
I think Duncan's kind of competitiveness on defense has been a little under-talked about. I just think that he just has to not get killed, and he hasn't.
And he has to stop fouling as much.
He really has.
He hasn't. Yeah, he hasn't fouled as much.
He has, and I know that he had. And I've rewatched the game. I don't think that he got good looks. He really got a lot of under duress threes, end of shot clock, like, oh fuck, last option. They need to do a little bit more. I know Siobhan had some threads about kind of their off ball movement and stuff, and I do think that there's like, if you watch the film, there's areas for them to improve. Particularly when Highsmith is on the floor, because he's very not guarded, which is why he's like very active as a cutter, but he should be active as like a hammer screener, like what PJ used to do and stuff like that. So kind of look to see how they kind of try to spring Duncan open. I think I think that they don't like to run plays for him anymore, and I don't think he's like a in the flow of the offense kind of guy, which is kind of funny because and they paid him a lot of money, and he needs to be kind of like fed threes. Not just he can't find his threes. He needs to like be fed them, and I think that's kind of the disconnect with the offense and him.
Yeah, but I also think at the same time, even with them struggling to get him open looks yesterday, he's still such a threat out there, and especially with them not having Tyler, you still want to create that space for Jimmy and for Bam. Bam was effective yesterday. He spent so much energy keeping Mitchell Robinson off the glass. He didn't score a ton. I'm not mad at him for that. But I do think there's still a lot of value in Duncan being on the floor, even if he's not making those shots, because that gravity is just so – teams are horrified of Duncan Robinson.
They still are, man.
What he's shooting, they are terrified of him.
It's a fire drill.
Yeah. And so I think he sees some minutes in game two still. I like that he's been in the rotation. And he'll be able to get those shots off because teams are also scared of Jimmy right now. But – I wouldn't think too much about his game one performance just because that gravity still kills teams regardless of whether he's making shots or not.
Dog, everyone's so afraid of Jimmy. You know that little run that they went on when he got like the 3 leak outs and then he got like that one little pull up on the corner on the baseline? Bro, me and the Heat fans in our section, I was with my friend who's a Knicks fan. He's a New Yorker. And I was like trying to behave most of the game. When Kyle did anything, I go crazy. And when that fucking thing happened, those fans and I got up because everyone in that fucking building was like, oh no, it's happening. And we just go, these motherfuckers know what time it is. It's Jimmy time. They're so quiet. They know what fucking time it is. We were insufferable, bro.
Yeah, and you know what?
Hated us.
And bad ankle or not, it's going to happen. It's because I don't even want to know. I don't even know if I want to go into my whole thing about the Garden and how like it's just the more I get into the history of the NBA, like the more annoyed I get by the way the Knicks are looked at.
Dog, it's ridiculous. They have Harry Styles' number retired.
Really?
Yes. Because he did 15 straight shows in the Garden. So they have like fucking Harry Styles and 15 and like Billy Joel and like another number because of how many times he's played there. And I go, they make fun of us for the fucking Marino thing? I go, you have fucking Harry Styles up there. At least Marino played fucking sports.
Yeah, it's like, man.
I was like, is that a Ranger I don't know about? Like,
yeah, it's just there's a New York City bias in entertainment in general, but as far as the Knicks go,
celebrities, it's like a bunch of former fucking Knicks and Ben Stiller and fucking conspiracy weirdo Aaron Rodgers who eats clay. And, it's just bad. Martha Stewart, who I didn't know we're fucking cheering for criminals now. Like, everybody's fucking excited. I was like, this is a fucking felon that, Madison. And guess what, Kenny? They didn't show D-Wade. I'm in the arena. I had no idea Dwayne was at the game until I saw on Twitter.
Yeah, I bet.
What a bunch
he
of
killed them a ton too.
What a cow.
But yeah, it's just like they've been in the league was founded in 1946. The Knicks were a team the whole time, and they have 2 championships. And like that's cool, I guess, but it's 2 championships in however many years. Why is this considered like this storied historic franchise? If they were in any other, the Houston Rockets have a more impressive history than the New York Knicks. I looked at it. 2 recent titles. It's just like it just annoys me because then the fans are arrogant based on nothing, and it's just a whole thing. I don't get it. So I say all that to say Jimmy's gonna have his moment in the Garden, bad ankle or not, and I can't wait to see how it looks.
I do too, and we hope he can play. I mean, he walked on it. We saw it on his Instagram today. But he was.
If it's up to Jimmy, he's playing.
He's such a fucking troll, bro. He does that.
If it's up to him, he's playing.
Did you see him in the corner just practicing his shot?
Yeah.
Like he's a little dickhead.
Oh my! And man, like the Knicks seeing that and seeing Jimmy's too hurt right now to even be in the offense and attacking him once, and he didn't get him to switch and was like, all right, you know what? Well, let's just give up on that game plan. The game is over. Whatever. I felt if I were a Knicks fan, that would frustrate me so much.
Kenny, I felt they quit. I felt the Knicks quit, and the fans quit. The fans were leaving.
I saw your video.
It was a 10-point game with like 2.5 minutes left. That's not over. Mm-hmm. And I don't blame people. Like real talk. If you're leaving with like 30 seconds left, whatever. Like if you're down 10 with 30 seconds, I stay. I'm not blaming you for leaving. But 2 minutes?
You know what? Nah. You know what? I blame him because one, the Heat fans get a ton of shit for leaving games.
Heat fans will fucking leave a game when it ends and they'll get shit.
But leaving Heat games is a fucking nightmare. You got to sit in that parking lot for like an hour, and then Biscayne is closed off. You got to get to a part of Biscayne that's not closed off.
It was crazy. It was seamless.
And you were probably in the Uber. Yo, they're catching a fucking train. They still have.
No, I went in a train.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. It's
Kenny.
They have no traffic to beat. They're going underground. Like, why are you leaving early? But nobody's gonna say anything about that. It's just Heat fans who leave early, and despite the Heat always being at least top 6 in attendance percentage, look how empty the stands are with 20 minutes to go before tip off. Like it's I don't know, man. It's a whole thing.
It was just crazy to me, and I don't know, that was kind of wild. But it just felt like the fans gave up, the team gave up. Mm-hmm. Maybe they knew about Brunson's injury too, and maybe they were just like, whatever. And then, let's just call this. Let's leave without anybody else getting hurt. But it was just wild. It just felt like they just kind of quit, and they just.
But you know what? That's a sign of a team that hasn't won.
Yep.
And a coach that hasn't won as a head coach, because
the Bucks don't quit.
They don't quit. And if you show that kind of weakness to an Eric Spoelstra team, you're kind of done. It's kind of over with. And so you're willing to quit. It's a wrap.
It just felt like it. I mean, it was
yeah.
just, I don't know. The whole vibe was weird to me as somebody who was like never been in an opposing arena. I was like, oh, this is strange. Let's talk about what the Knicks can do as adjustments, and then we'll kind of get into our last story here for the day. I think the Knicks have some cards to play. Well, obviously, like if Brunson and Randle are out, you know, that's going to make their life, you know, nearly impossible to generate enough offense. They'd really have to just be very quickly centric.
Which I'll take.
But honestly, Kenny, he was like my X factor in the series for New York. I was like, if that guy plays well, he's a problem. He's like, you know, no pun intended. He's very quick and he is very fast.
Yeah.
And they don't have the facilities for that, big man. So that's just a problem for them. If I'm gonna assume health, because you know if they're not healthy, we could just throw all this shit out the window. If those guys can go, and I heard Zach Lowe talk about this. I thought it was interesting. You know, you have to consider starting Grimes, especially if Jimmy's going to be limited. Maybe you don't need to put Josh Hart on him, and maybe you get a little bit more shooting in the starting lineup to kind of help them. You know, if Randle plays, do you have Randle? Do you have Bam defend Randle? I've heard a lot of people like you put Bam on Randle out of respect. I actually put Kevin Love on Randle. And I make Julius Randle prove to me that he's healthy enough to score on Kevin Love consistently. And if that's the event, then we you know, you can kind of adjust and move Bam. But until then, I keep Bam on Mitchell, and I keep him. I think because I mean I don't know if you saw the box out numbers that Chef Trilly tweeted out today. Bam's box out numbers today, he had like more box outs than fucking Evan Mobley had the whole series.
Yeah.
I throw a lot at you. I'm sorry.
No. I think I like your idea of putting Kevin Love on Julius Randle as long as they stay in a drop.
Yeah,
just
prove
as long
it.
as they stay in a drop. Yeah,
just prove
that, and then because Mitchell Robinson's not gonna score, but you kind of want Bam boxing him out and keeping him off the glass. So I can see that. I wouldn't be mad at that. And obviously they could adjust at any time if Julius Randle does start to get off, which I don't think he will. Then he can just adjust and put Bam on him. So I'm not mad at that idea. As far as Emmanuel quickly, if Brunson and Randle are out, he's a very electric player. He's also very young. He plays very young sometimes. He makes a lot of mistakes. He kind of gets ahead of himself a lot. And so if it's going to be the Emmanuel quickly show, just kind of let him do that until he falls off a cliff. And it should be a pretty easy win for the Heat.
They're due for a really good shooting night, Kenny, and I know that just because they're a bad shooting team doesn't mean that they won't. They might win game 2 off a great shooting night and some energy and effort, because if they have a normal shooting night, you know, we're having a different show today. So I don't want to come on here and say, oh, they have this in the bag. I don't want to be a New York fan. I want to be like real about this. You know, Miami had answers to what New York did. I mean, they won a big game on the road. You know, they'll leave happy with a split, as they did in Milwaukee. You come home for game 3 and game 4 in your building where you're very successful at home. Haven't lost a playoff game at home this postseason yet. They've only played twice, though. But, you know, if you're Miami, I think you got to continue with the containment of Brunson. If those guys start hitting shots, it becomes a little complicated. I do think you have some switches to play. You know, you might give up some offensive rebounds. You know, you have to kind of be specific on the matchups. I can see them going to that if the shooting becomes a real problem. I just really don't think you can let Brunson go off. They might just dare them to shoot like they did the Bucks, and I'm like, okay, do it again. Like you did it once, do it again, which is what Miami did. I mean, and it worked. I mean, Milwaukee really never shot the ball that well again. Get it all out of your system, and it's like an avalanche when it rains, it pours. So they're due for the big correction game, which could very well happen game 2. I'm very prepared for it, and I think
at home I can see that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that they're going to be desperate. That crowd's going to be desperate. So you know, I could see them having a much better performance. And I thought, Kenny, they made a lot of mistakes. Like I thought RJ made, you know, he lost Highsmith a couple times. Just like kind of silly mistakes in pick and roll.
I wanted to talk,
Yeah. So I think that there's room for them to just play better. And I think they're going to have a film session. They're going to be like, hey, guys, you know, you fucked up. This you fucked up. You know, the leak outs for, you know, Brunson and Zach Lowe talked about this, you know, because the Knicks are cross matchupping a lot because Miami's very comfortable having Jimmy on Brunson, and on the other end, they don't want Brunson on Jimmy. They want Hart. So the Knicks are in cross match a lot. So by Jimmy leaking out and pushing in transition, guys get lost, and he's just springing free. So there's some element of that as well that they can kind of clean those things up.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the Knicks' defense and mistakes because that's a lot of what happened yesterday too. They'd be very disciplined on the initial action, and then after that, a couple swings, and they would just get lost. And you have to keep that discipline throughout the whole shot clock or the whole possession, really. And that just wasn't happening a lot for them yesterday, and it's kind of uncharacteristic of them this season. So maybe they fixed that, but honestly. It's a lot of fixing, man. It was. You said you rewatched the game. It was so bad. Like, okay, Bama roll, they'll stop that, and then it was just like lose, a couple more passes and everybody's lost.
You can't lose Jimmy on a cut. And then the other thing is, my boy Kyle Lowry.
You can't.
My boy Kyle Lowry. They cannot vet like rookie mistake. Just having the ball anywhere near Kyle, where Kyle can get it.
Yeah.
And by the way, he's a fucking dickhead. He plays like a dickhead. He is a dickhead. He's going to fucking put his ass in you. He's going to do shit that they're not going to call because they don't see it. And the Knicks fans are complaining, and I'm like, you're not familiar with this game, are you? And that's how he plays, though. Like, he's a get under your skin kind of guy. I mean, like, Iguodala is the same way. Like, all these guys just have their little veteran tricks to fucking piss you off and to agitate you while you're complaining. They leak out or they cut or whatever. And, the 4 blocks, I'll put blocks in air quotes. They look like strip steals, whatever. But that's just a testament to his quick hands. He is in a lot of instances their last rotating defense. He's the low man. As funny as that was, and as bad as it was in the Hawk series, he's good because he'll take a charge and quick hands. Yeah,
and that's what I said during the Hawk series. It looked bad.
I do it too.
It looked bad that game, but Kyle is not a bad low man to have, despite his size. Because of what you mentioned, taking the charges, that still deters guys from driving to the basket. It doesn't have to be a shot block necessarily. So his charges and his quick hands, he's not a bad low man, and he has the strength to handle if you want to post him up. It's not a mismatch. So Kyle is a low man. I don't really have a problem with most times.
I think this is a good transition to our final point, which is Zach Lowe on his podcast said that he had talked to some executives. They said that they feel that the Heat don't miss Tyler Herro as much as they thought they would. And I thought that was kind of an interesting conversation coming off Kyle's big night because the ball has been in Kyle's hands more because, Gabe will create early and they'll give Gabe kind of his touches early. But really as the game progresses, it becomes more and more Kyle and Jimmy ball focused. And it used to be Tyler and Jimmy ball focused. And Tyler's more of a scorer and Kyle's more of a facilitator at this point of his career. And I was just thinking about I don't like these conversations, Kenny, because I don't like saying they're just better without this player who's really good, right? Or this guy just doesn't fit. It's matchups, a lot of it too. Tyler would have absolutely shredded the Bucks drop, as he was doing early. But I do think there's something to be said about he and Love can't play together very often because they're both weak defensive links, and I think you can survive with one of them, and they have. And I think that kind of him not being here has allowed them to play one and not the other. And I don't want to have a dialogue about why they're better without Tyler Herro, might call him. That's not what I want to do. I just thought it was interesting, and I do think there's some logic behind the fact that given the matchups they'd miss him in a Celtics series, in some ways, and in some ways not, but in a lot of ways, yeah. I mean, he's a great ball handler, and without Oladipo as well, really their only 3 ball handlers are Jimmy, Bam. Bam's not really a ball handler. Jimmy, Gabe, and Kyle. Caleb can do a little bit, but you're not comfortable with that. So it's just an interesting. It was kind of an interesting subplot that they said that. Yeah. And I just said, you're the Tyler guy. Kind of curious where you stand.
I get it on the surface, but I also see they didn't peel any layers back on it. This is just so the Heat don't have to play Tyler Herro and Kevin Love a ton of minutes together. It's worked and it's been a great adjustment Spo's made to play Kevin Love a lot more, but
just because they start,
it's not really as necessary.
They start both, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they start both, but at the same time, we do have to acknowledge that yes, Jimmy goes nuclear at every playoffs, and that's great, but he shouldn't have to all the time. It is pretty exhausting, And having another scorer there, like Tyler, obviously would help a ton, would get him some rest where he's not exhausted. You can kind of not preserve him because it is the playoffs, but Jimmy doesn't have to do everything as often on the offensive end if you have Tyler Herro there. Yes, the defensive struggles, I get it. But – and also Tyler's been competing on defense. I don't even want to say having him out there would make them that much worse.
No, I don't think that. I was just saying that, like, having both he and Love,
both
because then you can put them both in a pick and roll, and then really, like, that's like where that's like the losing proposition, I think. And if you're another team, that makes sense because if not, you're putting like Strus and Bam in a pick and roll, and it's like, well, Strus has size.
You don't want to deal with Bam,
and if Bam's propping Strus up, Strus becomes a much better defender because he's like athletic and kind of long, and he can kind of recover. As long as Bam just keeps the dude in front of him, and that happened a lot in the game. Like, and Tiff said it on Hangover Time: bend not break, right? Like Bam is hold Bam. Listen, Bam holds a village, bro. He's fucking amazing, and you know, and just a size thing and stuff like that. So you know what's funny, Kenny? In these playoffs, the Heat are outscoring opponents by 26 points per 100 possession when Jimmy Butler's on the bench. Now, I think some of that is noise from the comeback in Game 2 at Milwaukee. It's only 63 minutes, and that was probably – but again, that was like what? Like probably 10 of them, if that, or 8 of them.
Yeah.
So it's just – Miami has crushed the non-Butler minutes, right? Yeah. And opponents are shooting 52% from 3 in those minutes.
Yeah.
But their offense is off the charts. It's 120 offensive rating.
And
pretty crazy.
This is something I started to notice towards the end of the season, and I had to really think about. And that's when I ended up tweeting like the Heat look like a team that's going to hit another gear in the playoffs. Because when we were to think about it, they've been together for about 3 years during the Jimmy Butler. Right now, they're 3 wins away from their 3rd conference finals appearance in 4 years that Jimmy Butler's been here. A lot of times in the season, they just kind of – and they shouldn't have, but they looked kind of bored and just ready for the playoffs. And so I think that's a huge difference
Kenny,
with it.
I'm not going to give them that pass. They look like assholes.
I will.
I'm not. I'm sorry. Some people can say that, and Spoke came out and said people were too hard on a regular season. I think people went way overboard in some aspects. They fucking couldn't beat Detroit. You talk about...
I think both things are true. Both things are true.
But you needed... Like, I'm not pretending... listen, you know that I'm... Everybody in this chat and who listens to this knows that I fucking ride or die for this team. I fucking flew to New York to represent this city and this team. They know that I've been doing Heapy for 10 years. I fucking love them, but I'm not an idiot. And they probably don't beat the Bucks if Giannis doesn't get hurt. And they fucked around and got an 8 seed, right? And if things go a certain way, you know, they might not be here right now. So I agree with some of the stuff that Spo says, but you're not good enough. I think it's a bit of both. You're not good enough to be bored.
Yeah.
You're not.
I think that's the combination of things. They were bored at times, but they weren't good enough to be. So they look a lot worse at times. But
we know they're better than Detroit.
Yeah. Yeah.
There were some nights.
I think it's both. I think it's both things.
There were some nights we didn't have evidence of that, but we know. You know what I mean? And the fucking Atlanta game, I mean, that was what's crazy to me is that game I thought was poorly coached, and I said it at the time. I was like, they did not look prepared for anything Quinn Snyder.
And Quinn Snyder also, because I wasn't on air at the time. Quinn Snyder did a great job in that game.
No, and I gave him his credit, and I was like, those motherfuckers watched all the tape, and they were ready for everything Miami had, and the Heat thought,
every action.
The Heat thought, oh, these fucking suckers, they suck, and they just went in with their plan, and none of it worked, and they were like, whoa. It was like, it felt like we don't have a plan B, and it was fucking crazy, and they got their ass. I mean, listen, Kenny, I'll be the first to admit, I made plans on Friday that they had the second playing game. Brass booked tickets to a fucking show. Everybody had fucking plans that Friday because none of us thought that this was going to happen. And then our life got flipped upside down. So, you know, shit happens, whatever. But yeah, no, just I thought that. And Spoke quoting J. Cole, there's beauty in the struggle.
I did not see that.
Yeah, I saw somebody say Spoke Cole. It was Spo. I don't know. So it was a funny pun that I
by the way, you know the Caleb Martin story, right, with J. Cole?
The Caleb Martin story?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Because Caleb is from North Carolina. And so he was out of the league, just in the gym playing pickup. And, you know, J. Cole loves playing basketball. And so they were just in the gym playing all the time, and J. Cole was like, "Hey, who is this guy?" They explained how he went to Nevada, blah blah blah, whatever. And J. Cole made the calls, and and Caleb ended up on the Charlotte Hornets. And then no, this was after the Hornets, and then he made some calls and got Caleb on the Heat's radar, and Caleb ended up with the Heat because of J. Cole, pretty much.
That's
playing pickup with J. Cole.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
that's almost.
You didn't know that?
I did not know that. They may have been told and I forgot. Reminded me of when Rodney Hood taught Haley Williams of Paramore how to crip walk.
Oh yeah.
See how similar things.
I forgot about that.
I just think Rodney Hood and Haley teaching Haley. What a random guy, Rodney Hood. I wanted Rodney Hood so bad.
Man, he had a run at Utah.
Dog,
I wanted him in Miami too.
I want to officially announce the Harry B agenda's over. It's done. It's cooked.
Oh yeah.
The book is closed. It's over.
Man.
Joe Arida. It's Jover. We're out of the Harry B sweepstakes. We had a good run, fam. The train was fun, but unfortunately, the train is closed. Much like the mechanic shop.
Man, 29% in his career in Game 7s.
Listen, I think if he had a little culture, it'd be different. But he was pretty cooked this season, and I quietly went away from it this season. And then he kind of had a resurgence like by All-Star break, and I was like, "We coming back?" And no, he stinks again. So I love you, Harry B. But yeah, it's over. So shout out to that. But yeah, Kenny. So game 2 is tomorrow. That's Tuesday. Oh my God, I gotta get some sleep. So they're going to play tomorrow. We'll keep you updated on the injuries. We'll have pregame at 30 minutes before, and then we have hangover time after. Glad Alp's back, man. It's hard out in these streets without it. But make sure to check out our full game coverage. I have a special guest for you. He was supposed to come today. Had to move things around, but he'll be on Thursday. I think y'all are going to like who we're going to hear from on Thursday. We got tons of stuff planned for you this week. I believe Mixed Bag is coming back on Wednesday. So look out for that. Tiffany Meeks returns with Mixed Bag. I got to get the schedule out. I've just been tired, fam. But yeah, so that's what we got on the docket. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Gnavas103, at Kenny Spence NBA. That is Kenny Spence NBA. And we'll see you tomorrow for our game day coverage. And remember, y'all, it is Heat in Cinco.